adventures. We're just about to pull up here and search for blackheads. You often find them in these verges on the side of the road, and last few nights someone had reported one basking on the road on the left hand side here. So yeah, just to get some video footage, we're going to go and search for it. Whenever I'm out in the bush looking for burrows, I like to carry one of these things. These are like a plumber's camera, and you can stick it in burrows and see what's in them without digging them out. That's the camera there. You'll notice it's got a little video screen there and a little light there.
Behind the sun, how was I to know, baby? How was I to know that you'd be the only one who would let me go just to show? Yeah, the best things in the universe were just at home, and now I'm lost.
Bingo. Right, you shine a camera down there. Bring the camera over here. This is a perfect burrow, and you can see typical python slides. If not python, it's probably a bigger leopard, but the width of these looks like a python. In fact, have a look at the width of that. So it's a fairly large snake, possibly a black-headed python. Anyway, this is what this is for. The only negative about this is it's an little LED screen, very hard to see without covering up to get some shade, but see how we go. Can you zoom up on, can you put the camera up here and see what's going on?
No, too much reflection. Can you see anything?
Okay, you can clearly see here, well, probably not so clear, but that is definitely a black-headed python. You can see the small scales and the pattern on there. So I'm going to see if I can pull this fella out. I wouldn't normally stick my hand in a burrow like this unless I knew what was in there first. Come on. Here we go. Black-headed python. It's a female, so I'm really glad we didn't disturb that chamber, because who knows, it might be where she's going to lay her eggs. This is a typical example of the Pilbara Coast black-headed python, a lot smaller than the Northern Territory variety, even though it's the same species. If you have a look on here, it's probably going to have ticks, being in the bush. As you can see, it's got ticks on it there, as they normally do in the wild, but they don't really bother the animal too much. If I was to take that and bring it into captivity, of course, I would remove them. The reason I said this python was a female, with this species it's quite easy to tell with the shape of its tail. And the way you tell is the concavity of the tail taper. In other words, it starts thick at the cloaca and tapers away sharply. If that was a male, it would have hemipenal bulges from about the 5th subcordial scale. Hemipenes means it actually has 2 penises. The Pilbara Coast black-headed is a lot smaller than the black-headed python you find across the top end and into the Northern Territory and in fact Queensland. They're a little bit more flighty. This one's pretty placid though. Normally they'd be hissing and carrying on. And I'll show you something a little bit strange about the black-headed python. What you'll notice, on its lips, what we call the labial scales, and they lack heat sensing pits, which most other pythons have. But it's not to say that they don't have a heat sensing pit. In fact they do, and it's located right under its rostral scale, which is under its snout. About 6 years ago, myself and a colleague called Adrian Hogg was over here, and we were suspicious about that little pit under its rostral scale. We always suspected it may have been a heat sensing pit, but a lot of people didn't believe us. We tried to instigate a few people to do some research. No one seemed interested, but someone has taken up the research now, and it was officially proven about 12 months ago that that is in fact a heat sensing pit. And we were right all the time. The black-headed python predominantly feeds on reptiles, and this is what makes wild-caught black-headed pythons, particularly from this area, a little bit difficult to get going. In fact, some of them are very difficult to get going and not recommended as a pet straight out of the wild. That's not to say that other pythons from this area don't thrive in captivity straight out of the wild, because they do. This is probably the exception. Once they're established feeding in captivity though, they're bulletproof and thrive and make good hardy pets. Black-headed pythons really bite, and they often mock bite, and I'm actually having to stir this animal up to demonstrate that, so who knows, I might get bitten. But when they do bite, or attempt to bite, they often just headbutt. There's another hole that looks like a burrow, but the camera tells us that it goes nowhere. In fact, it's not very deep at all, and clearly that's probably excavation, a foraging excavation of a decent sized goanna. Okay, the good news is that I'm not actually going to take this specimen. I've got enough of these as it is, and we'll put this female back where we found it. And who knows, next year I might come back and the same man will be in there with pups.